Hello, everybody. This is Paula. This is a comic book show, and I'm here with a skeleton crew today. It's Richard, and of course, my son Tom on drums. Because it's Christmas, and I've been listening to some sometimes interesting, sometimes not so interesting information about Christmas and where the traditions came from. I was looking for one to read, and then I remembered, hey, I wrote one for a newspaper called The Republic, and I'm going to read that. Okay, so I was lucky enough to be able to do a culture and food column, and this was very fun. Anybody who wants me to write for them, by the way, you can contact me. I just need to get paid. Okay. Life is tough, especially around Christmas when we are expected to do everything we ordinarily do, plus entertain, buy and wrap gifts for those we know and barely know, send out cards to a long list of friends, family, and forgotten acquaintances, bake cookies, and decorate elaborately, both inside and out, which often involves erecting a full-grown tree in our living room. We do this every year. All of this reflects the cyclical nature of life. If you picture your life as a PowerPoint presentation, it would not be a straight line going from A to Z, but a series of spirals not unlike the cursive exercises we did as children to practice making O's. We live a series of rounded years through seasons and holidays. This has been going on since time immemorial. Christmas, which technically commemorates the birth of Jesus Christ, is only as old as that event, right? Not if you deconstruct the elements of our traditions. You would then see that people have been setting up trees and reveling at this time of year since before history began. Most Christians are aware that Jesus was probably not born on December 25th. The date was wisely selected by Pope Julius I to coincide with some rival religions' celebrations marking the rebirth of the sun, winter solstice, and Saturnalia, in honor of the Roman god Saturn. There are several important gods who share the birthday of December 25th. One of the earliest is the unconquerable sun worshipped by the Etruscans. He is the predecessor of the Roman Apollo, who, coincidentally, is often depicted as a shepherd with a lamb slung over his shoulders, much like the Christian image of Jesus as the Good Shepherd. Another important solar god born on this date was Mithra. He was the god worshipped by Constantine before his conversion to Christianity in 360 AD. Mithra was born in a cave, and shepherds attended his birth. At the end of his life, before returning to his father, he engaged in a Last Supper with his followers, which was later commemorated by a ritual communion of bread and wine. His supporters believed that at the end of time, Mithra would return and raise the dead from the tombs for a final judgment. Sound familiar? The secular traditions of Christmas have also flagrantly borrowed from antiquity. The history of the Christmas tree is usually associated with the German tradition mentioned first by an early 17th century anonymous German writer. However, there is a much older tradition of decorating pine trees that predates Christianity. The god Attis, born at winter solstice, was the son of Sibyl, the ancient goddess of Rome. As was common in these stories, Sibyl lusted after her son. Horrified, Attis castrated himself under a pine tree to free himself from his mother's desire. Those wild pagans commemorated this event by decorating a pine tree and then abruptly cutting it down as a sort of tribute to Attis's act of self-mutilation. Don't try this at home. Mistletoe is no less sexual in nature. Now we kiss under the mistletoe and pray that we don't get caught by Uncle Melvin, who seems to linger there a bit too long. The Druids held the parasitic plant sacred as a magic potion to make barren animals fruitful. The reason for this belief was that the crushed white berries looked like human seed. Almost makes that stolen kiss seem a bit less innocent, no? And let us not forget our old friend Santa Claus. Although his holiday was traditionally celebrated weeks before Christmas on December 6th as the feast of St. Nicholas, the beloved boy bishop of Myra, has now been inextricably combined with Christmas. Commercialism has appropriated Old Saint Nick as the patron saint of rampant consumerism. However, there are older traditions that may be partially connected to our current image of Santa. These earlier echoes can be found in primitive Nordic shaman traditions that include visions of magic reindeer, bells, red robes, and crawling up and down a tree through a smoke-filled hole in the top of a tent. Even Santa's small gesture of placing his index finger to his nose is an ancient Celtic signal of shamanistic knowledge. The modern image of Santa was fleshed out in the 19th century by luminaries such as Washington Irving and his satire entitled Father Knickerbocker's History of New York. Clement C. Moore's Night Before Christmas and the cartoons of Thomas Nast, who came up with the idea of Santa's workshop in the North Pole, and the book where Santa keeps track of all our deeds. I've ordered a copy of mine under the Right of Information Act. No wonder I never got the elephant I asked for when I was 6. It seems that traditions were not replaced by Christianity, but evolved into usable forms from ancient rites and rituals. It has been one constant connection from our ancient past through millennia of seasonal cycles through which we continue to live and die. In some way, I feel comforted by this continuum, but in other ways, I would like to go to another planet where no one is insulted that I do not send Christmas cards. Well, that's my contribution for the show today because...
Well, what do you do if you don't do Christmas cards and somebody sends you one?
Oh, I know, because you usually send something if somebody sends you one.
Yeah, I mean, do you just ignore it?
No, I call them.
Phone.
Yeah,
okay.
I call them and I say, thank you so much for the Christmas card. I don't do that. I mean, I don't have my memories of holidays aren't so hot. I had family trauma, so I like to ignore them. My traditional holiday on Christmas now, except last year when I fell and I just started getting better now, is I go to my daughter's house for breakfast and I bring the kids their gifts and then I celebrate with them for breakfast and then Greg and I go out for Jewish Christmas, which is Chinese food and a movie. And that's fine with me. I don't need a whole... I'm not even... last year I put up a tree because I have some ornaments that we bought when we went different places, but I'm not even doing that this year. This was a difficult year.
I received my yearly Christmas card from Fred Moore.
I did too. He called me and he asked for our address. He didn't have it.
And he did the same thing that he does every single year when he sends me his Christmas card. He says, I need you to give me this person, this person, this person, and this person's address. And originally, I was annoyed. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't stay in touch with any of these people all year. You wait for the end of the year, and then you ask me. Why don't you just start communicating with these people?
You must have given him my number because I don't think he had my number. And because I think he loses his address book is what happens. He had so much clutter in his house. But yeah, he called me and he asked for my address. And I mean, he gets a big kick. He doesn't send them out for us. He sends them out for him. He enjoys doing it. He gets to show off his stamps that he loves.
Yeah, but I have, like you, I have changed my thinking toward him. Mm-hmm. My thinking is now pretty much what you just said. If this is the only thing he sends out, why cut that off? So
yeah.
Let him do what he wants to do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's enjoyable for him. He gets a big kick out of picking out the stamps and arranging them on the envelope, and he's got little stamps that it's like it's a craft project for him. Mm-hmm. And he gets a big charge out of it. Mm-hmm. But I would like to go and visit him. I did tell him that I'm going to make an effort now. I mean, I still have some more physical therapy appointments that I have to go to. So once I've got those 2 days out of the week freed up, and we can make a plan.
It'll be interesting to hear your comments on how this is different from the other elderly homes you've been to.
And I've been to a lot. Well, I've been to a lot because my mother was in she was in a physical therapy place for a while, and then I worked with people with developmental disabilities, and they worked in different nursing homes around the area. And then when my mother-in-law lost it, I had to find someplace for her, and I've been in a lot. Did this seem like something that's better than the average?
It sort of reminded me of going into a building for like the CIA.
How so?
They have a touch screen. You have to put your fingerprints on there.
Oh.
And they go, this is just to get you registered. Once we get you registered, you can bypass all this stuff. You have to, you got to put down your name, address, phone number. You have to show them your driver's license. And then once you're in the system, then I think every time after that,
you just put your hand
you just
on.
put your hand on there. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds similar to the hellhole my mother-in-law was at. The first, that was a nursing home.
Yeah.
And it was for dementia. And, they had that whole process for getting in. But that was inhuman. I mean, that was like Dante's, layers of hell. It was bad. It was really bad.
The one your mother was in.
Greg's mother.
Mother-in-law.
Yeah, my mother-in-law. So now she's in a place that's very nice, and she doesn't remember when people visit her or anything, but that's okay. She's perfectly happy living in the moment. She's living a very Zen existence in the moment. So it's good. But
Does she remember things from long ago?
Yes. Yeah, she has this very, I believe, and I mean, this is only my opinion based on, what I've read about sugar. I think that that she had too much sugar in her diet, and it's corroding her memory, like just her short-term memory. There are long-term memories. She can have a conversation, but when you're finished having it, she could have the same conversation again 5 minutes later and not remember she had it. So, it kind of limits what you... And the other thing is reading. If she reads a couple paragraphs in a book, by the time she gets to the third paragraph, she forgot what the first and second paragraph were about. So she can't really... And she bemoans the fact that she doesn't read anymore, and she doesn't understand, why don't I read anymore? And I know that's what it is. And she certainly doesn't write anymore because she can't keep track of it, Maybe if she tried writing about the past, I guess she could.
You know how this is on the topic of memory. You know how some movies can be a door. You watch them and you enter into the world of the movie, and some can be a window. You're like watching it, but you're not involved. And then some can be a mirror where you watch it and go, wow, that happened to me.
Yeah.
So the third happened to me this week.
Oh, really?
There's a movie out about Maria Callas, brand new movie where
Oh, okay.
Angelina Jolie plays Melina.
Oh, really?
What do you know about Maria Callas, the opera singer?
Well, not much. I just know that she was an opera singer.
There was a sleeping pill that was invented in the 1960s called Mandrax. And it, as often happens with medications like Ozempic, it was for diabetics, and then someone said, oh, you lose your appetite on this thing. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, somebody noticed that instead of taking one before you go to sleep, if you take two and you stay up, this weird thing happens to your mind. You sit down and you start reliving memories. All right?
Oh, so it's like your subconscious is kicking in, like a dream state.
I was thinking more like Marcel Proust.
Oh, okay.
You know, how he had the Madeleine.
Yeah.
And then he went into this state where he he remembered all these things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as soon as people discovered that, they discovered this is cool, where you can go back and you can and you can relive your events that you have long forgotten. And it became fashionable for people to take Mandrax. And okay, in the 1960s, my mother was prescribed to that drug, and my mother, either by accident or she read about it, she found out about this thing about going back, and she started doing it. And just like Maria Callas, once you start with that, you like it so much you never want to get off of it.
Wow.
So the
Oh, hello, Celeste. How are you?
hey,
Good to see you.
So we're talking about that new movie, Maria, about Maria Callas. Have you heard about it?
I don't know about the movie, but I know about Maria Callas. I own recordings by her.
Do you know anything about her reliance on a specific drug?
Well, all I know is that she was prone to anxiety and angst and, like emotional roller coaster. And she was under some kind of care. I couldn't specify what that might be.
Yeah, well, we're talking about this medication she was taking to sleep, and it's a fascinating story. Richard was saying,
if you take, instead of one a night, you take two and you stay up, you start having all these memories flashing back in your mind, and you relive them. So you can look around the room at things you might not have remembered, and then you remember that.
Wow.
So my mother had the same addiction, the exact same thing. And once a month, so let's say the doctor prescribes, there's 31 days in a month, you get 31 pills, right? So once a month, she would take 2, and then the next day she would take 2, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she tried to stretch it out so that for at least a couple days out of the month, she could go into those reveries. You know what's brutal about those things? My mother would not just relive her memories. She'd relive the memories, walk over to the phone, call somebody up and say, you know that wedding that we were at 12 years ago? You were so rude to me when you wouldn't sit at our table. Why would you do that? And she'd start yelling at them.
Wow.
And then I would meet these people. They go, what's going on with your mother? They go, she's a real handful. I go, don't talk to me about it. Now, my father's position was, look, she's not really harming anyone. She's probably harming herself, but she's probably not. She's just calling people up.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But it made it so vivid to her, and those people that she was calling probably didn't remember it at all.
Right.
Because I even have a disclaimer when I'm writing my own memories down. You might not remember it like this, but this is how I remember it, and that's the way it goes. But you'd be surprised. I mean, things that hurt you or things that excited you, you'll remember more, and somebody that was right there won't remember it at all.
No.
So you can see why they made this movie, because at least 3/4 of the movie are her reliving her memories.
Wow.
And then, of course...
Well, she had memories to remember, too. She was quite a character from what I've read. And her fascination with the Metropolitan Music Conductor and the New York Philharmonic Conductor. I mean, she was sought after and revered, but she was, I don't want to say hard to handle, but because she was so, I don't know, hyper or anxious or whatever, it made it challenging.
Well, and that comes out in the movie. Because her anxiety that you mentioned, Celeste, is, are all those days of glory gone? Is my voice gone forever? Because I don't want it to be. I think I could still be Maria Callas.
Yeah, that happens with a lot of movies. I mean, it's just like, what was A Not a Star Is Born. There's one, Hollywood Boulevard. You want to be that person still. You want to be that star. You crave it.
Yeah, and I was talking to Dudley about that very point today.
Hmm.
I said, because he was talking about how happy he was in Hawaii, or how happy she was in Hawaii. And I said, and now that Dudley's taking care of her mother,
Yeah.
all that's gone.
Yeah.
And I said, well, there's this saying that goes back to ancient Greece, Pante Rei, which means everything changes.
Yeah.
And when you accept that in your life gets a lot more peaceful.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the difficult things about existence is especially if you fight against change, it's not going to turn out well for you.
Yeah, because
No.
Vanessa was saying the malls are closing and the music venues I used to go to are gone, and everything changes.
Yeah.
You just got to deal with it.
Yeah, and it's, you have to adjust. And I think as you get older, you're used to things the way they used to be. I bemoan the state of radio. I loved when radio played all different kinds of music. You'd hear the Rolling Stones, and then you'd hear the Four Tops, and then you'd hear maybe Elvis Presley, and then maybe Frank Sinatra, And that was great because you got exposed to all that. Now every station has its own specific thing that they play. So, so I don't like, I wish radio would be better, but you know what? I can always listen to music that I want to listen to on my own. It's just that it was exciting when a song came on the radio that you liked. If you put the record on, you knew it was coming on.
Yeah.
But if you heard it in the radio, it was like, woo! It's exciting.
Well,
It's-
because you were sharing the experience with
Well-
all the other people listening.
yeah, perhaps. I think it was more just the randomness of it,
Yeah, I think that randomness is nice because you hear music you wouldn't necessarily seek out, right? It's presented to you, and then you may become a fan of something you were not aware of.
Yeah,
or,
that's true.
Now,
You know,
now
or
what do
you
you
s-
think about those sites that say, if you like that, you will probably like this?
Well, I do listen to Pandora sometimes, and I'll
Yeah.
put things in, and they'll share things that are similar to that from that same.
How close are they?
Sometimes I like this. There's some music. It's called Japanese something or other. I can't remember, but I never heard of them before. But they started playing them on my Pandora, and I liked them. So I think it's a good idea. And then you get a little randomness because it's not exactly. Or I put in 15 different musical acts that I like, and they'll play them randomly, and then they'll put in some other stuff that I don't know. But
yeah.
I think it's just harder to adjust as you get older. That's all.
Do you have any response to the comments?
Listen to Weck. Yeah, I do, Dudley. I listen to Weck sometimes in the car, but that's all older music. And sometimes there's something called The Bridge, which is music maybe from the 90s, and I'll listen to that for a while. But there's nothing like listening to new music that's all mixed up. That was always fun. But there's still good music. It's harder to find because the pop stations play all the what do you want to call it, the sex dance music.
Yeah.
It's just sex dance music. And there are stations that play things like Billie Eilish. I like Billie Eilish, but
Well, you know what I do sometimes, which I never thought I'd do, but I'm glad that I don't do it a lot. But I've discovered, these things pop up on your Facebook page,
yeah,
reels, and there are different people performing. And as a result, I've come across, a handful of artists, indies, I guess, that just, put this stuff up on YouTube and or TikTok, and I get them through the reel. And they've been pretty good.
yeah,
And then some of them, through their own thing, they they tell you whose playlist they're on. Like, certain celebrities or something have found them on
Yeah.
YouTube and put them on their playlist, which I think is pretty good. And a couple of them, even from this area, I mean, like Toronto, Albany, that I haven't found one from Buffalo like that.
Yeah. Well,
But I've enjoyed them. So, I mean, I guess that's something new,
yeah, you can listen to that. You can go on. I don't know where to look though. When I'm looking through music, I don't know where to look for new music. That's why Pandora suits me, because there is new music on there that I don't know about, and they will play it for me if I put in a newer band that I like. But
Yeah.
Brian is saying that he listens to 102.1 from Toronto, and so that's, I don't know what he means by some good different stuff. I don't know if it's modern or if it's older stuff that you just don't hear all the. You know what I heard today on WEC? I heard, okay, Cowboys to Girls. Do you remember that song, Celeste?
That's a song?
Yeah.
No.
It was a one-hit wonder, and it was like the guys singing about how he went from cowboys to girls.
Oh, yes.
I haven't heard that song probably since I was.
Oh my God! We were kids when that song came
yeah,
out.
yeah, and
Yes, Cowboys to Girls.
yeah,
Yes,
and
I remember that.
I haven't heard that song for decades.
Oh my God! You heard it today?
I heard it today on the way over here.
Oh my God! They dug that up out of a time capsule.
They sure did.
Oh.
It's not one of those things you hear. It's not like. It's not like
Well, they had those. I guess my Amazon music subscription is in this thing that I have. It asks, oldies, golden oldies.
Yeah.
They you can mix that up, and those things will.
Yeah, that must be like Pandora then. I don't really subscribe to that, but it's
Yeah.
it's good to listen to music sometimes. It's just I tend to listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube, like philosophical stuff and
Yeah.
and theology and things. So
Yeah, see, my music station is actually a Canadian station. I listen to the Canadian jazz station, 91.1.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like vocal jazz. If I'm out, I like regular jazz without vocals, but I don't, for some reason, it's not something I like to listen to. I'd rather have something with lyrics. So that's what I end up
Well,
doing.
if you try that station, it's a cross section, and a lot of it is singing. I mean, a lot of it's instrumental, of course.
Yeah.
But there's some wonderful jazz vocalists, male and female, American and Canadian. If you're into the genre, I preface that, but I've sort of grown up, because when you're a kid, you like that screaming, jumping, thumping music, and then because you're on the dance floor screaming, jumping, thumping with them, right?
I'm not that angry anymore.
No.
That's angry music. I'm not that angry anymore. I'll
No.
listen to stuff I listened to back then, but I don't need to be. I don't need any more screaming. Screaming is
Yeah.
not good for me.
There is
no.
a recording studio in New York City,
Uh-huh.
and they're always trying to keep their name out there because they get more business. So
Yeah.
they have a podcast. They're trying to think up ideas like how do we promote our. So they came up with this interesting idea. They had a jazz band in there, and they said, will you help us with our podcast? Okay. So then they ran the cameras. They said, we're going to play a Nirvana song for you one time. We'd like to know if you could figure it out, and if you could reproduce it.
Wow.
Will you accept the
Ooh.
challenge? They go, sure. They figured the thing out in like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
They're like looking
Yeah.
at each other. It's a D, A minor, Fa, and they're going like that.
Jazz musicians are really knowledgeable. Music,
Yeah.
they have really good ears. That
Yes.
And then for the second half of the video, they were saying, now, how are we going to do this? And they were using all these jazz expressions, like, I think we should put like a jazz Coltrane riff over here and this and that. They have their own language.
Yeah.
There's no question
Yeah.
about that. And he says,
Yeah.
yeah, but are we going to make it swing? And so it's, I don't hear a swing in this thing. And the other guy says, I see Elvin Bishop over here. So they finally argue it out. And then for the third of the video, they perform it. And it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it ends with them all laughing. Like, what did you expect?
Yeah, it was a.
Like,
it
did
was
you really
a,
think this would stump us?
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting idea. That's for sure. Taking Nirvana and doing that to it.
Yeah. Well, jazz musicians tend to play a lot of different music anyway. I mean, jazz may be their preference and their strong suit, but you got a gig and you got a gig on so many other things. So,
Yeah, remember,
they have great ears.
remember that song, I'm In with the In Crowd?
I'm
Yes.
in with the in crowd.
Right.
I know
Yes.
what the in crowd knows.
So one of Ramsey Lewis, he's a musician.
Yeah.
One of his relatives visited him backstage before he was going to go on. And she started singing that. He goes, what are you singing? And she said, this thing on the radio, I like it a real lot. And he says, oh, well, would you sing it for me? And so she sings it. And he says, fellas, what do you think? You think we should try this? So they went out and they played that. And of course, the concert got recorded. It became a #1 hit.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
the
yeah.
Ramsey Lewis version of that. Definitely was great. That's the one I was singing.
That's in the Incra, absolutely.
So
And they still play it today. That song has to be 50 years old or better. I don't know.
I know.
But it's very popular still. Like Hugh Masekela music is still real popular. Grazing in the Grass, you can hear that.
Oh yeah, Grayson in the Grass. I love that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of those. That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I like to listen to jazz stations, because they will, cross
Yeah.
eras,
Yeah.
decades, right?
So,
So.
so Richard, we didn't even talk about your list today yet. We didn't make any mention.
I had a dream that I wrote down. Do you like interpreting dreams?
Sure, let's interpret a dream.
Okay, Mr. Windsor, can you get me out of F11? How do you get out of it? Yeah, you can't get out of it. You hit function F11, nothing happens. Oh, okay. All right. So you don't have to hit the function key. All right, that's cool. All right, you want to hear the dream?
Yeah.
A little background. I got to give you a little reality.
Okay.
Jim Prey, our
Yeah,
friend, he
yes.
usually sends me maybe 50 YouTube links a day.
Yeah.
No words, just the link, right?
Great.
But then last Sunday, poof, nothing Monday, nothing Tuesday, nothing Wednesday, nothing there. And I thought something's wrong. So I started texting him, no response. So I said to Sanford, we got to go there on a wellness visit.
Yeah.
And then as we park the car, I say, now be prepared. For all we know, he could be dead.
Yeah.
So
Nice thought. Yeah.
try to get your
Yeah.
and then he says, I hope not. And I said, well, I hope whatever happens, we have the strength to deal with it.
Right.
So so anyway, we go there, and thankfully he said he was sick. And he said on top of that, he said he was having trouble with his internet. So,
Oh, okay. Well, that
okay.
makes sense.
So now the dream.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In this dream, Sanford and I go to a rundown trailer park in Great Britain.
Wow.
And
I don't know if they have trailer parks in Great Britain.
we're visiting
They do.
Yeah.
Gypsies live in them.
Oh, that's right.
We're visiting an impoverished family, and Jim Prey's very poor. Now, earlier in the day, we had gone to a thrift store, and I'd purchased a baseball hat, and it had the words 500 ounces on it. The family was all excited when we walked in because they had been advised that they were getting a visit from Jesus that evening.
Oh,
Is that how you think of yourself, Richard?
And I pointed to a small footstool, and I said, now when Jesus comes over, have him sit on that small footstool. However, first, you see this cushion and this cushion, put it on top of the footstool. And the 12-year-old daughter in the house started crying. She said, I can't believe we're going to have Jesus sit on an old footstool instead of the best seat in the house. And I could sense the anger in the family building, and I said, look, if you have Jesus sit on that small footstool and you put those cushions on it, after Jesus leaves, they're going to all have healing powers.
Oh, wow.
I said,
Oh.
and you could sell them easily on eBay. And you can sustain yourself with the revenue from that for a long
You're
time.
so practical.
And I said, if you put Jesus in the best seat in the house, how are you going to ship it?
Wow, Richard.
I said, that small footstool, you could put it in a cardboard box.
I am learning so much about your psyche right now.
I'm speechless because right now he sounds like these people on TV see the money walking toward you if you
Well,
send me $10 and I'm going to send you blessings from all the archangels.
when you said footstool, you don't.
No.
Oh, okay.
The father of the house comes up to me and he looks at my hat and he goes, son, you are about to freeze to death. It's time for you to leave. We left the trailer park and we found ourselves in an expensive boardroom with all the wealthiest capitalists in England. And one of them comes up to me and says, we heard what you recommended to that family. Who sent you here?
Oh,
I'd like a copy of that dream.
You got it.
I'd like to watch it over and over. And so when you first said footstool,
Yeah.
all I could think of was the story where Jesus washes the feet of whoever it was. I don't remember whose feet he washed. And I'm thinking sitting on that footstool would give him more contact with the person's feet. You know, that was my first thought. Obviously, I went to Catholic school. Then when you went off into the tangent of the two pillows, they're going to be holy and they're going to be able. Wow, that was your theology training.
Well, I think that comes from the thing in the news this week where the ruby slippers they were
went
sold.
for sale.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you could
For a
say
lot of
Judy
money.
Garland wore these, and
Yeah.
the value goes up.
Yeah, it was a lot of money they were sold for.
And in the book, they're green,
Oh, really?
but MGM said red would look better on a Technicolor,
yeah,
so they had to
Yes.
change it.
yeah. Huh. But yeah, so if you read about that, then that's the. But also, you've got experience with online sales and
Yeah.
and wanting to help them, but you're thinking in a practical way, and they're thinking magical thinking about religion. So you're not even communicating. There's no communication because they're going to want to keep those magic pillows as a souvenir of their visit with Jesus. but oh yeah, and then you go to the boardroom and who sent you?
Yes.
That is crazy.
That's a great dream. That's
Yes.
real. I never
I'm telling you,
remember the
once he was
narrative.
selling the healing, it just turned into a whole big trip for me because I understood the footstool part that you talked about because you think about that right away. Yes, he's going to be sitting humble, and then it's like put some cushions on there. So now you've expanded into a lap of luxury, and now he's transferred his healing powers, and you're going to like merchandise it.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah, if you think about it, in a way I was telling the family, look, between you and me, these are not going to be magical pillows.
Yeah.
But the people on eBay will think they are.
Right.
You know?
That's right. So we have got to think from Dudley. Mary Magdalene, from what I understand from my reading, she was not a prostitute. She was they call them temple prostitutes. She was worshiping a god, and she worked in the temple, and part of the ritual was sexual. So she wasn't selling her body. She was having sex for God, her God, whatever God that was, before she went over to Jesus and followed. But you know what? I'm reading a lot of stuff about the historical Jesus and the fact that this may have been made up. A lot of it made up. I don't know. I'm confused. I've been reading a lot.
I'll send you the name of this historian, archaeologist woman who's British, and she's done years and years of research on Mary Magdalene, and what we know about her through the Christian Bible as it stands now. doesn't represent her at all.
Yeah, no, and plus there was
Mm-hmm.
in the Gnostic Gospels, she had her own testament. You know, she had her own
Yes.
writings. She
Yes.
was definitely an apostle. But they just downgraded her to make her because she was a woman,
Yes.
and when they got a hold of Christianity, they didn't want women to be equal.
No, no, no. And she was a big cheese apostle too, as
Yeah,
well.
because she understood what, you know, how Jesus is
Mm-hmm.
always saying, those who have ears hear, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and those who have eyes see.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently from, and then we don't really know, there's a lot of conjecture, but
Mm-hmm.
apparently she was one of the people who really understood his parables and what he was talking about.
Yes.
And he gave her the secret or the information that resonated with this bigger picture that the other apostles didn't really get.
Yes.
So I
Yep.
don't know. It's
Yep.
it's all possible, and it's all kind of, it's
Well,
interesting. I find
since
it
we know about
interesting.
her, based on writings far after her life, but I like the research that's been done on her. Uh, if I could, she's allegedly, places where she's buried is in France. There's a couple of locations that they're identifying as resting places for her.
Hmm.
But it would be interesting to talk to the historian who wrote that, and to the caretakers of the churches where apparently there's relics of her, supposedly
Yeah,
her resting place.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's. I find all of that fascinating.
yeah.
I am. First of all, anything that I don't. I like ancient stuff, and that
Mm-hmm.
happens to be ancient stuff. I started investigating it though when I was married to someone who was Jewish, and
Mm-hmm.
he told me a lot of stuff that he knew, and that sparked my interest, and I started reading more about the historical time of when Jesus was around and the history
Mm-hmm.
around it, not just Jesus, but the history around that time. It was
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But so
Well,
Richard, you
we're still governed by so much of that in principle and philosophy, and really, it's surprising that it's not challenged to a greater degree than it
it's
is.
because people need something to hang on to. People need hope, and it's very difficult. I mean, the whole idea that you're responsible for your own existence and you can make your own decisions and you can be in charge of that. It's scary for people. You know, not
Yeah.
everybody can handle it. And I was just talking. I was just talking to Richard when we first came in, and I listened to this thing on YouTube about Einstein believing in Spinoza's God. All right, so I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to listen to that, and I wanted to understand Spinoza's God. And Spinoza believed that everything is connected, that everything is
Mm-hmm.
God, that the word nature and the word God are synonymous,
Mm-hmm.
that it's all one thing. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about. That's what I've been ruminating
Mm-hmm.
on, is this we are all one thing, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
I go through this whole thing about we have things living on our eyelashes. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know that they're living on our eyelashes. They don't have
Yeah.
consciousness of that. There are things in our gut that live there, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't have any consciousness of where they are. They think that
Yeah.
they're living in their own world. And so
Yes.
therefore, and you can go down further and further, and those things probably have things living on them. So
Mm-hmm.
who's to say that we're not just a very small part of this huge thing that's God? And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is exciting. And
Yes.
what's exciting about Spinoza's idea is that, you know, everything is the same and connected. That means I am stars and the moon
Yes.
and
Yes.
birds, and you know, I love that. I that makes me happy. How
I
can
think
you?
that's a
Yeah.
that's I think that's a great way to look at it. I've subscribed to that for I didn't call it Spinoza, but that notion of universal infinite connection. I've always, because too much of it is similar in terms of the way life forces act, right?
Yeah,
Through creation, through procreation, through survival, through nourishment, through the identity of the species, is pretty much the same from, the wiped out era of the dinosaurs to those tiny microscopic entities that you referenced.
yeah,
That process is replicated at every level.
exactly. And
Yeah.
the thing that excited me about it today, or actually the last few days, is that if this like as Brian had pointed out, it's pantheism. As if this pantheism is believable, how can any one person, all these problems with self-esteem and loving yourself and these ideas, where people have such a hard time even liking themselves, let alone loving themselves. How can you not love yourself if you're part of the stars?
Yeah.
I mean, if this could become, I just feel, especially for women, well, not only women, men have problems with it too.
Yeah.
Because we're all raised by flawed individuals who were raised by flawed individuals who were then, before that, raised by flawed individuals. And so we are, we can't help but think we're flawed, but we're not. We're all perfect because we are all part of this huge thing that is God. I like that so much.
Well, I think we have to understand that there's storm within sun, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there will be, the positive, the negative energies, the poles, the North Pole, South Pole, magnetism versus anti-magnetism. So I think that in order to have that universal balance or reflection, that's where the struggle may impact people more. Because although we're all part of the same, within that same is going to be, cold and hot, light and dark. I mean, it's all woven in there somehow. We don't have the answer to the universe, but that's part
No,
of
and
it.
it's exciting. How much we don't know is exciting.
Yes.
That's exciting because that means there's way
Yes.
more to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know about the story of Niels Bohr and the horseshoe?
No.
He's a physicist, and he was always on the vanguard of what is the latest advancement in physics. And and he's the one who said that the nature of reality is so bizarre that our contemporary view of physics is not enough to understand it.
Yeah.
So he had this appreciation for the unknown. So supposedly Albert Einstein visited him at his home. And as Einstein was walking in the door, he looked up and there was a horseshoe nailed above the door. And Einstein said, isn't that like a old folk belief that it's going to bring you good luck? And Bohr said, it is. And then Einstein said, so why do you have it? It's not true. And Bohr said, I know it's not true, but I also heard that it works even if you don't believe in it.
Yeah.
You see what he's doing? He's separating
Yes.
our theories of the universe as to what's really going
Right.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. I that magical thinking stuff. I am guilty of some of that myself, but I like the fact that we don't know everything. I like the fact that things can change, that theories can change, because it just shows growth and excitement. I mean, without change and without growth, we're dead.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the Dylan line? If you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. And that to me is exciting.
Yeah, and be willing to take the risk along that road to discovery.
It's
I
up
mean,
to-
there's so many things that we still don't know. I mean, we still talk about how did they build the great pyramids of Giza, right?
Yeah. Well,
People now are talking about the Earth being an oval, not a round spheres. I mean, there's so many things.
yeah,
Um,
and the thing is, but scientists are
hmm
just like us
hmm
because they're very jealous of their theories.
hmm
And if somebody comes along and questions something that they've believed in or they created,
Mm-hmm.
they
hmm
get so pissed. They're
Mm-hmm.
like little
Yeah,
kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're
yeah,
pedant. No, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but they're like little kids. They throw hissy
yeah,
fits and they don't
yes,
want that to change. So the next thing can't even happen until the old vanguard goes.
There's a good quote about that.
yeah.
Science progresses one funeral at a time.
Oh my gosh.
So you got to wait for the people to die out who made the discoveries but are clinging to them
Yes.
before new ones can be accepted.
Yeah, and it's and I was expecting, I'm from a blue collar background. When I went back to school and I took archaeology, I was expecting these great open minds of
hmm
people that were just like talking about ideas and waiting for that next change. And I found a
hmm
lot of really closed up little dried up old guys who
hmm
were protecting their theories and
Yeah.
didn't want anything new. If a new discovery was made where there was some archaeological artifacts that were found
hmm
that predated what they believed was the first inhabitants of this continent, they went
Yes.
nuts. They said it was planted, you know. So I just can't. I couldn't believe it. I wanted them to be special. I wanted them to be not bankers and bureaucrats, but they were bankers and bureaucrats, and that upset
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. And they
So
do. They cling. They cling ferociously, but you know, their life is their legacy based on their discovery. So hence and therefore, and as long as one can remember,
Yeah, but it's
you
a
know,
it's a progress. I mean that's
yes,
still a mention because that was what we believed, and now we believe this, and then
yeah,
after that we believe this, and it's still part of their legacy, and that their life was exciting. They got to do archaeology. They should be just
yes,
happy that they had that kind of life, and
yeah,
instead of having to do something else, that they didn't love.
yeah. Vanity, ego, recognition, rewards, all those things, interfere with the process of exploration and discovery, depending on your motive. It's interesting because I appreciate the fact that there's so many different scientists because it gives you an opportunity to look at whatever each one is saying
Hmm.
and then sort of do your own questioning, and you can go look for answers other places or similarities other places. I mean, my fascination with the ocean and marine life, which is why I appreciate people wanting to go to space. But the fact of the matter is, right now we live on Earth, and 70% of it is water, and we know less about what's in the ocean, which is probably our emanating force. We should be spending more time figuring that out because ain't nobody building an apartment building on Mars no time soon, right?
Well,
So,
let's there. The thing is, there the the thinking is we're going to ruin this place. Let's figure out another place we can go to that's going to be really hard to live on. you know, that we're going
hmm
to have a really big problem. There won't be any oxygen. Yeah, I love oceanography. I think
yeah,
you know what? That's the whole point of this life is if you are curious about stuff, there's so much interesting stuff to know.
hmm
You couldn't possibly fit all that knowledge into your head. And
yeah,
and every time you make another discovery, it's exciting. And
yes,
and then it leads you into another direction. And I mean maybe it's not focused in my world. I'm not focused on one thing. but there's
Yeah.
just explodes. Knowledge is exploding all around us.
Yeah. Well, you do, I think people have to be evolved to a certain point to anticipate if they were confronted with that. Like, the yogis and people who study and understand the human chakras, for example,
Yeah.
how to manage that. And, if you don't manage it well, you get overwhelmed and overcome and confused. And you have, the monks who practice that sort of self-control and connection to the broader universe, whatever that might be for them. And it's pretty exceptional. And for people who are devotees of that and practitioners, they walk differently among us in terms of how they relate to the culture and how things are happening, which I find, interesting. They certainly are, more at peace than most of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I just can't. I mean, for me, I find that life is so interesting and exciting that I can't see renouncing. you know,
Yeah.
I'm not at the renouncing stage. If there's reincarnation, maybe in a couple more lifetimes I'll be at that stage. But right now I'm at the life is exciting stage of my existence.
Yes. Yeah. Well, renouncing is hard if well, I guess I don't know, they renounce material life and they enter into this life of some of them, not all of them. And I don't know how many of them, different opportunities there are for that. But they talk about, sending out prayers and energy, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
Um, and not every church and every monk is like that. I'm really sort
No.
of thinking about people who are, higher level,
Yeah.
like the Dalai Lama and other
Yeah.
great yogis. Not,
Well, I have a
not where we gotta have lawsuits. I'm not into those guys.
Yeah, I've got a question for Dudley. Dudley, when you're by the ocean, because I know you spent a lot of time when you were living in Hawaii, do you get the sense that it's the earth breathing when the waves come in? That back and forth between the waves going out and the waves going in. I always got this sense that the whole earth is breathing. I don't know. I don't see an answer here. It's probably like, what the frick are you talking about? I love that feeling of laying on the beach and it feels like the earth is breathing.
It probably is.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it turns out plants, when they need to be watered, make a high-pitched noise that we can't hear.
Yeah.
They cry
Yeah.
What do you mean? Oh, when they need to be.
when they need
Okay.
water.
I see.
Well, I guess there's these whole, things that you talk about in terms of, balancing yourself, your body, these frequencies. I don't know what all the frequencies are, but some people know them and they're practitioners. And I remember going to a workshop, to the Problem Solving Institute a number of years ago above state. And one of the sessions I took was about movement inside a genesisphere. And the music they use to teach us a sequence of movements that you would do. You didn't necessarily have to be in the genesisphere, but if you were standing in the sphere, because you could build one or just go through these motions, you could create these balances.
Is it something like Tai Chi, where they're with the movement?
It kind of looks like that, but not as demanding.
Okay, yeah.
Because it was primarily angles and, maintaining upright. You were never bent over or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's directional and angular. The music they used was Pachelbel's canon, which they say,
Yeah, that sounds cool.
right, is supportive of that movement.
Well, we've got like 30 seconds to go now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank everybody for being here. And guys, Brian, thank you for contributing. And Dudley, thank you for contributing. Richard, thank you for opening up your house as usual. And thank you to my lovely son on drums. Oh, and Celeste, of course. I'm
It's all good.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy everybody's here. It makes me happy. Thank you.